This is the Art of Darkness podcast with Kevin Kautzman.
And Abby Lucas.
We're a couple of very online writers interested in the dark side of creativity.
This show is about art and the people who make it, what it costs them, and what it takes to bring something unique and impactful into the world.
On each episode, we examine the life and work of an artist you might think you know.
Don't worry, they're all safely dead.
We aren't. Find us online at artofdarkpod.com, and please support the show through Patreon or Substack. You get extra stuff. Thank you. We're back in the saddle, Art of Darkness. This is a core episode. I cannot wait. Abby, actually, this is the first 4-day core episode. This is just the prelude to 3 more days of recording. Abby, I don't know if you saw the calendar invites, but I hope you've cleared your calendar for the next 3 days. Are you ready? Are you ready to cover the life and work of Richard Wagner, Abby?
Yeah, you're going to have to speak to my agent.
Sure, right. I'll have my people call your people. This episode may be 14 hours long. I don't know. The outline is quite long. This is our first Gesamtkunstwerk episode of Art of Darkness. We're going to do the first total podcast that's ever been recorded. I have so much material. I'm very excited. Obviously, it's been a minute since we released a core episode. We're doing 12 of these this year. I know Abby's preparing one right now. Abby, who are you preparing before we get into this episode?
I am currently preparing Roald Dahl.
Roald Dahl, coming right at you. It's our summer of anti-Semitism on Art of Darkness.
No.
Obviously, listen. Retweets are not endorsements. We're covering the life of the lives of these great artists because they're very important. It is Art of Darkness. We do go to the dark side. Obviously, with Wagner, we're going to cover all of that business. Let's start with the Art of Darkness question, Abby. What do you know about Richard Wagner?
I know that he was a German composer and, as mentioned, famous anti-Semite.
Infamous anti-Semite. The work is still not performed in Israel. And of course, when I began this episode, I really didn't know that much about Wagner. I knew Flight of the Valkyrie, right? Bum, you know, from Apocalypse Now and everything. You hear about the anti-Semitism, and you sort of go, well, I don't know, what really, how serious? It was serious. It was. Serious and vehement even for the day. And again, we cover this stuff because it's Art of Darkness. We don't relish it. We're not, every episode that we do about a monstrous figure is not an endorsement of every single behavior. Simply because we say the word anti-Semitism doesn't mean that we're savoring the fact that we have to cover who might be the greatest artist of the 19th century, who was also a complete monster and an absolute bigot, even by the standards of the day. So this is what we do on this show, and I hope people are ready for it, and I hope people enjoy it. There's this one has it all. If you have a bingo card, one of our old school bingo cards, you're going to want to bust out the bingo card. We have not one but 2 dead fathers. We have, in childhood, we have affairs that would lead to scandal throughout Europe. We have flights from debtors. We have jail for debts. We have, what else do we have? We have scandalous eroticism. One of the things I'm going to cover on the After Dark for patrons is this idea that that Wagner was dangerous. His music was dangerous. They were worried that women were being too excited by Wagner's music. They believed that Wagner's music could cause orgasms. The elusive female orgasm. That's going to be something I see Abby wants to get in here. Have you ever heard this Abby, that Wagner might
This is all news to me. No. Nobody on one of those listicles in a woman's magazine has said, try Wagner.
Absolutely, gentlemen. Put some Wagner on the next time you're having trouble. If she's a little frigid, put on the Ring Cycle, which of course is some 14 hours long, which I listened to, so you don't have to, and see what happens. So that's going to be on the After Dark. We're going to talk more about that. That'll come up on the main episode. I've got a big After Dark plan for the patrons. Again, the bargain here is that these core episodes, the dark rooms that we do, the interview episodes, they're all free. But we always do an After Dark, which is bonus material for the patrons. We're doing 12 core episodes this year. Hopefully, people value what we're doing. And if you do, go to patreon.com/Art of Dark Pod or substack.com/@Art of Dark Pod and get your support in. We really appreciate it. These episodes do not create themselves. This one, I think, is big air. And for the After Dark, we're going to do more of our Year of Lynch. We're going to read from Catching the Big Fish. I've got Wagner and Women, Wagner as Sexual Danger Goblin. That's what that's called. And listen to this. And I got Wagner pilled, by the way, on the music and the work during the making of this episode. It is awesome. And this episode is one of those perfect episodes where you're gonna have to parse the work from the life. Let's try it again. The work from the life, and it's not our job. This show, we don't give a verdict on that, right? You sit in the hot seat. You get to decide. I don't know if I ever want to listen to Wagner again. I don't know if I ever want to listen to Wagner because of all this life stuff, and that's perfectly fine. That's your decision. We just make the case. We just cover the life, and then we talk about the work. We talk about the influence of the work, and we don't shy away from the darker, harder stuff. And so, in any case, listen to this, Abby. Respected doctors blamed Wagner for much mental illness, with the Dutch psychiatrist Jacob van Deventer concluding in 1891 that a large number of the mentally ill are passionate lovers of Wagnerian music.
Wow.
Perfect for our audience. So I hope everybody's ready for that.
But for the bingo card, is there a manifesto?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, Abby, there are books, whole books when we'll come to it in the episode when he was essentially exiled and unable to take the stage. He just took to the page and wrote a series of books where he conceived his Gesamtkunstwerk, the total unified art that he was aspiring to. And this is when he wrote his infamous anti-Jewish tract, which we'll cover. And which was not, and again, it wasn't like little bits and bobs. I mean, it was like he was vehement. I mean, he was intense, and a lot of it came from jealousy and kind of bitterness, and the fact that he was exiled and he was seeing Jewish artists, succeeding and having all this success, and he was very bitter and jealous. And it would have been better for him and his legacy if he had just simply focused on his creation of this perfect German opera without having to like drag down an entire people as he did, right? But that was not Wagner, right? Maybe you've heard some of the music. Wagner wasn't reading the room, right? Wagner was the room. He had no chill at all. So yes, there are manifestos, Abby, and we'll talk about them. Are you okay? Good. Good question. That's a good question. So again, on the After Dark, I'm going to talk more about Nietzsche and Wagner. Of course, Nietzsche had a fraught relationship with Wagner. He wrote an entire book, Nietzsche contra Wagner. We're going to talk about Tolkien and the Ring, right? Maybe there's a connection between the Ring Cycle, which is about a ring that you need to control in order to rule the world and control the world, the opera, and Tolkien's Ring. Maybe there's a connection there. Briefly, we're going to talk about Wagner and cinema, and then finally on the After Dark, this big After Dark for patrons, we're going to talk about the Nazi appropriation. Our favorite Austrian's favorite composer was Wagner, and we're gonna go headlong into what people call the Wagner problem. What do you do? This is maybe This is one of the ultimate examples of people having to wrestle with the work. I mean, if you're let's say you're a Jewish violinist and you're in an orchestra and they want to play Wagner, how do you feel about that? What are
Mm.
you going to do with that? And there are serious ethical, and sort of moral considerations, to be had here, and it's not a joke. So we're gonna talk about that more in the After Dark. Okay, how are we doing, Abby?
Good.
We ready to get
Ready.
into it? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Good. All right. Let me just clear my pipes here because the first
Your
half of
vocal
this,
warm-ups.
yeah, the first half of this is going to be sung, and I apologize
Oh
for that.
no.
Whoa, whoa. No, oh no, oh no, and half the audience tuned out. Um, cool. This is going to be good. All right, so let's do it. Um, Richard Wagner was born in 1813. Was a German composer, and he revolutionized opera and art with his concept of the music drama, where he integrated music, poetry, and stagecraft into a total work of art or a unified work of art, Gesamtkunstwerk. That was one of his major contributions to the idea of art. Before Wagner, the orchestra was always in view.
Hmm.
By the time Wagner had his way, the orchestra was hidden and the stage image was absolute and the thing that the audience was intended to focus on. He presaged cinema.
Hmm.
His opera, as he staged it, was almost a kind of cinematic experience. And of course, and we'll talk more about this, the early film composers were all influenced by Wagner. Star Wars is just completely Wagnerian. The idea of the leitmotif, be familiar with, of course, the idea of the leitmotif in art and in music. A leitmotif is a theme that recurs. So, for example, the bump, the Valkyrie. As
Hmm.
soon as you hear that, that signifies the Valkyrie are here. Here they are. That's their theme. And of course, over 14 hours of the ring cycle, there are numerous themes that recur and repeat. And so you're creating this sort of artistic, almost like muscle memory, right? You think about Star Wars. Well, if you hear the Imperial theme, you know it's the Imperials. Boom, right there, and that's the leitmotif, and that's another major sort of contribution to art that Wagner really. I don't think he created it, but he really emphasized it.
Right.
His life was totally dramatic. This is an Art of Darkness episode. This is just like it has it all. He spent years in political exile. He struggled with debt and scandals. Eventually, he would enjoy the patronage of a king,
Oh.
and yeah, oh yeah, that saves his life. We'll come to it. And he had it all. I mean, he was revered and reviled in his life, and he pushed the boundaries of everything. What the simplest way to understand what Wagner was about as an artist before we get into the childhood is he wanted to combine the grandiosity and the musical force of Beethoven with the dramatic intensity and authenticity and psychological truth with myth of Shakespeare, and he did it, and that's fucking wild. Like, and you can see why people become Wagnerians. There's an entire, like in the Ring cycle, there's an entire political philosophy. There's world building.
Hmm.
It has everything in there. And he influenced James Joyce and he influenced T.S. Eliot. A lot of his stuff. I mean, he's among the most influential artists of his century. Okay, so let's see. Let's get into the bio. He was born in Leipzig on May 22nd, 1813, the ninth child of Karl Friedrich Wagner, a police clerk, and Johanna Wagner. I skipped the books that we have. So real quickly, someone recommended this to me.
Hmm.
One of our listeners, Wagnerism, outstanding. If you want to understand, this isn't really a bio of Wagner. It's more of a just a tome on the influence of Wagner. It has a lot of good biographical stuff, but it's not like a proper bio. I have the text of the Ring of the Nibelung, which is the ring cycle, and of course the Nibelung are they're like dwarves. They're underground dwarves, and they have this gold ring, and the gold ring gives everyone power, and it has to do with love and power. You have to sacrifice love to have the power of the ring, and all of this stuff. And oh, I open it up, and it just says ha 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 ha. There's a lot of laughing in the Wagner operas. They'll just the
Those
Valkyries will
underground
laugh.
dwarves.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And of course, it's in four parts, and it starts with a prelude, which is the night before, which is where we are now. So 3 more days of Art of Darkness after this. It starts with the Rheingold. Then we have the Valkyrie, which of course is very famous. The tune of the Valkyrie. Then it is Siegfried, and then it's Gotterdammerung, which is the Twilight of the Gods. So it's in four parts. The first part is like a mini opera prelude, although it doesn't feel like a mini opera when you're listening to it. It's a lot, you know, and then it's three operas, and these are performed in Beirut at a
Mm.
festival every year in the full cycle. And I imagine people bring cushions and
Yeah.
snacks. Yeah, at least one person. I can't remember who it was. It was some composer said that he felt like when he was getting out of the Valkyrie that he had been let out of prison or something like this. It's it's like you in the Crowley episode, Abby. You're listening to the Crowley
Yeah.
episode ahead of a darker man. When it's over, you'll feel release.
But presumably you couldn't put Wagner on double speed.
I don't think it would sound very good if you put Wagner on double speed. We have to say, too, rest in peace, Ozzy Osbourne, the great Ozzy Osbourne. I think about
Yes.
Ozzy and Crowley and everything. That next year might have to be an episode. That would be a Kevin episode. Oh, in any event. All right, into the bio. So he's born in Leipzig. Oh, and then I have the book, the book that you have to have, which is Mein Leben, My
Oh
Life,
no.
Richard Wagner, a doorstopper of a
Oh
book.
wow.
And
Look at that
whole,
hat.
oh, what a wonderful hat, Abby. I think you would have been enamored of Wagner. I think you might have had a problem. Who knows? Who knows? In any event,
No,
let's
I'm
read
not really interested in the potato the potato Europeans.
the potato Europeans. What is it?
Yeah.
Germans? Ah, I see.
There's
You're more
like
interested in
there's
the.
a divide of Europe, the potato Europe and tomato Europe.
Okay, well, you're talking to a potato European, so show a little respect, Abby. The potato saved my people many times. All right, that's hilarious. All right, so this is Wagner talking about his life. Born May 22nd, 1813 in Leipzig, 2 flights up in a house on the Brühl known as the Red and White Lion. I was christened 2 days later in St. Thomas Church, the Protestants, with the name Wilhelm Ricard. My father, Friedrich Wagner, at the time of my birth, the registrar of police in Leipzig, with the expectation of becoming director of police, died in October of the same year.
Oh wow.
Following the great, yes, following the great exertions imposed by an overwhelming load of official duties during the wartime unrest and the Battle of Leipzig after catching typhoid fever in what had become an epidemic. As to his own father's situation in life, I learned much later that he had distinguished himself among composers in the humble municipal post of toll collector at the Randstadter Gate by giving both his sons a higher education, having one of them, my father Friedrich, study law, and the younger one, Adolf, a very popular name until about 1940, study theology. My uncle subsequently came to exert a not insignificant influence on my development. Yeah, and we'll talk about the uncle here later. About the father, whom I lost so early, I learned later that he was in general very much interested in poetry and literature, and particularly accorded an almost passionate devotion to the theater, at that time much patronized by the educated classes. My mother told me, among other things, that he took her to Lauchstadt to the first important performance of Die Braut von Messina and pointed out Schiller and Goethe to her on the promenade, enthusiastically setting her straight as to her ignorance of these great men. So
Oh
that's
wow.
the milieu that we're sort of in. Now, this is
Not your
very
typical policeman.
Well, right, a very educated, yeah, a man of station. He was going to become the director of police. Yeah. So let's see here. He seems to have been not entirely free of a certain amorous interest in actresses.
Oh.
Nothing changes. My mother used to complain jokingly that she frequently had to hold lunch for him while he was paying rapturous visits to a certain famous actress of the day. Okay, so there are intimations of affairs here, and it goes both ways. Oh, and Wagner, one of his, I heard on one of the, I think it was a BBC thing that I listened to that he at one point his anti-Semitism he railed against the Ten Commandments because he believed they were like a psyop. Like it's Jewish. I don't need this. And I have affairs. I mean, yeah, he was
Oh,
a
wow.
yeah, he was a
And like
libertine. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's a very particular reason to be to be
yeah.
that's not gonna hold it a grudge, man.
That I wow.
You're like a personal grudge
Okay.
against Moses.
I
That's
don't
where
need to pay attention to the Ten Commandments.
yeah, who needs the Ten Commandments? All right. Um, let's see here. Uh One moment. Whenever she scolded him, he asserted that official business had detained him, and to prove it, pointed to supposedly ink-stained fingers, which, upon enforced closer inspection, always turned out to be completely clean. His fondness for the theater was also evidenced by his selection of the actor Ludwig Geyer as an intimate friend of the family. Geyer is very important. Wagner's surname, his last name that he would go by for many years, was Geyer because of
Okay.
this fellow. Yes. Well, his choice of such a friend was surely attributable mainly to his this love of the theater. Oh no, the theater. He thereby
The theater.
bestowed upon his family a noble benefactor, inasmuch as this modest artist, through heartfelt concern with the destiny of the numerous offspring of the unexpectedly deceased friend Wagner, was moved to devote the rest of his life most strenuously to the support and upbringing of this family. Geyer becomes the stepfather, the father who stepped up. And he
Hey.
shout out to the stepdads out there. And there were only seven living children. Two of the children had died. I believe one had died very young, and then another died. You know, and this was that period where you would
Yeah.
have a brood and you know hope most of them make it. I mean, you have typhoid and all sorts of other things.
Lose half your teeth in the process.
Sure, right, yeah, awful. Now there are some, and this Geyer came in, swooped in quickly, and there are some questions of parentage. The idea that Geyer may have been Wagner's father
And
by
Guy is just a local actor.
a local actor who Wagner ultimately mistakenly would think was possibly Jewish, although Geyer is one of those names that goes both ways. Geyer was not Jewish, so this gets all mixed up with Wagner's psychology. Okay,
Right. And really the only father he knew because his father died when he was an infant.
absolutely, yeah, and
Right.
and then Geyer would, well, we'll come to it. And then his uncle would have kind of a bad influence on him. His uncle was this guy who would come around and go, the state, the church, it's all a bunch
Oh,
of yeah, what are these guys? And the school, you don't need school. Yeah, whoops, it was that uncle, that unk. And if you're
the
that
one you
unk
don't
out,
invite around that
sure,
often.
sure. And if you're that unk out there, listen, go harder, keep going, don't stop. You got to. It's so chaos among the youth. You want to be just like Socrates. All right. Even while the police official was spending his evenings in the theater, this admirable actor generally filled his place in the bosom of his family. All right. So we've got
Hmm.
this weird kind of poly thing going on, this quiet kind of dad's out at the theater chasing actresses, Geyer's at home. Okay. And it appears that he was often obliged to soothe my mother when she complained, rightly or wrongly, about the flightiness of her husband. Okay. And
Okay.
I think we're getting a sense of Wagner's wit and and understated. He's not saying the thing, but you can read between the lines, I hope.
Hmm.
How deep was the need of this homeless, hard pressed, and buffeted artist to be at home within a sympathetic family environment was proved a year after his friend's death when he married the widow and henceforth became a most solicitous father to the 7 surviving children. In this difficult undertaking, he was favored by an unexpected improvement in his career. As a so called character actor, he obtained an advantageous, honorable, and permanent position in the newly established Dresden Court Theater. And it goes on. So now you have the idea. Reading a bit more here. The earliest recollections of my childhood are fixed on this stepfather and pass from him to the theater. I remember well that my father would have been very happy to see a talent for painting develop in me. So he's talking, so he mixes father and stepfather. He's now talking about Geyer as his father.
Right.
His studio with the easels and paintings upon them did not, to be sure, fail to make an impression on me. I remember, in fact, that I tried to copy a portrait of King Friedrich August of Saxony with a child's eagerness to imitate, but as soon as I was expected to go beyond this simple playing with paint to a serious study of drawing, I did not persevere, possibly scared off by the pedantic ways of my teacher, a boring cousin of mine. After one of the common ailments of infancy, which made me so sick that my mother, as she later told me, almost wished me dead, owing to my seemingly hopeless condition, I seemed to have surprised my parents by thriving. On this occasion as well, I was told my admirable stepfather played a splendid part, never despairing despite the cares and complaints of such a large family, remaining patient and never giving up the hope that I could be pulled through. And then just a bit, my imagination was now dominated by acquaintance with the theater. He loved theater.
What type of sickness was it? Just a
It was just probably, I don't know, it was like a bad flu or something.
like
He
a
doesn't say
bronchial
explicitly.
problem or
Yeah. One of those things that now you'd get some antibiotics or something, and then it
right.
would just kill you. It would just murder you, and your mother would be like, "I wished you were dead. It would be better if you were dead." Auf Deutsch, so yeah, it's very yelly. All right, so and if that's not enough, so his he grows up in with this artistic stepfather, this character actor stepfather, which is such a funny image. And his stepfather's reading him Mozart, biography of Mozart,
Mhm.
and all of this, and he's getting one of those great 19th century educations where they're learning Greek and they're learning Latin and they're actually getting educated and then they're learning how to think and they're learning history and they're learning myth and they're learning, reading. Okay, well, here we go. One day, after scarcely a year of stay in the country had elapsed, a messenger arrived from the city notifying the pastor. So he was sent to stay with a pastor that he should, for his education, that he
Okay.
should accompany me to Dresden, where my father lay dying.
Oh, that's how the two fathers dying comes
We,
in.
oh,
Because when you said
nothing.
that initially, I was like, what? How?
No, nothing makes him listen. If you want your child to be an artist, just die young. Just have a few children and then just die, because you're gonna be. That is a surefire way. It is a common refrain on Art of Darkness,
Hmm.
and this I think is the first time we've had two dead fathers. Fun. We made the 3 hour return trip on foot. Exhausted when I arrived, I scarcely
On
comprehend.
foot.
Hey, listen, we're in the 19th century here. What are they going to do? Right? They
There's
is
a
sent to the
horse and
country.
cart. I don't know.
Well,
Train.
there's a horse and carriage later that causes a
Okay.
miscarriage. That'll be fun.
Oh,
We'll come to. Oh yeah, maybe you stay
a
away from the
horse and
horse and
miscarriage.
a horse and miscarriage. That could be the name of the episode. Yeah, this one's got it all. I'm so excited to share it all with you here on Art of Darkness. The following day, I was conducted to my father's bedside. The extreme weakness with which he talked to me, together with all the preventative measures taken in the last desperate treatment of his acute emphysema, came over me only as visions in a dream. I believe my uneasy amazement was so great that I was unable to cry. My mother invited me into an adjoining room to demonstrate what I had learned on the piano in the hope that it would provide some distraction from my father. I played Ub immer treu, and it's this is a tough one. Ub immer treu und Redlichkeit. Then father asked mother, "Could it be that he has a talent for music?"
Ah,
It's going to make an impression, isn't it?
could it be?
Could it be that Wagner, that Ricard Geyer, has a talent for music? The next morning, my mother came to our beds in the children's large bedroom at break of day and informed us, sobbing, of father's death, telling each of us like a blessing some things he had said. To me, she said, he wanted to make something of you. Pastor Wetzel arrived that afternoon and took me back to the country. We again went by foot and reached Possendorf only at dusk. On the way, I asked him a lot about the stars, concerning which he gave me my first reasonable information. A week later, the deceased man's brother appeared, having come from Eisleben to attend the burial ceremonies. He had agreed to try to help support the again destitute family and undertook the care to care for my future education. At least they had a society back then where if you had 7 children, you wouldn't be abandoned to the state like a lot
Right.
of like people would do now. People would actually come around. They had to. You had to. You had a duty and a sense of honor
Mm.
around that. Like this was not a joke. You got 7 little kids. You got this distraught woman who's lost 2 husbands in the course of a decade. And people would come around. I paid the village only one more visit many years later on one of the rambles. He's talking about Possendorf. I often used to take in the countryside when I was conductor of the orchestra in Dresden. Eventually, that would happen. It moved me greatly that I could not find the old parsonage, but found a more pretentious modern structure in its place, which so prejudiced me against the location that I never again directed any of my excursions into the area. So he goes back and they've torn down his, where he was educated and put up some modern monstrosity. Yeah. So yeah, a little more here. This is important stuff. This time, my uncle brought me back to Dresden by carriage. I found my mother and sisters in dress of deep mourning and remember being received for the first time with a tenderness unusual in our family and similarly treated at my leave taking when I was taken along to Eisleben by my uncle after a few days. This uncle, a younger brother of my stepfather, had settled there as a goldsmith. He had already taken one of my elder brothers into apprenticeship. He was a bachelor, and the old grandmother still lived with him. Her son's death had been concealed from the old lady, whose own decease was anticipated in the near future. Just don't tell her. She's too frail. Can you imagine? Well, it's really hard. I
Uh,
mean, it's hard. I mean, losing a child. I don't even want to think about it. How
no.
hard that must be. I too was instructed to keep it to myself. The servant girl carefully removed the mourning crepe from my clothing and explained that she would retain it to be used for the grandmother after she was dead, as soon as was soon to be expected. And so he's asked to conceal the death of his own stepfather from this
Oh,
woman.
wow.
I had no trouble concealing his death, as I myself had no clear idea of it. Let's see. This is fascinating. She lived at the rear of the house in a dark room looking out on a narrow courtyard and loved to have robins fluttering freely around her, for which she always kept fresh green twigs strewn by the stove. I once succeeded in snaring her a few to replace some that had been killed by a cat. She was highly delighted by this and in return kept me clean and tidy. Her expected death came to pass shortly. The carefully preserved mourning crepe was now worn openly in Eisleben. The little black room with the robins and green bushes saw me no more. Okay, so there you go. He's that's a little taste of Wagner's childhood there.
And Harry's only around 10 or so?
He's young at this point. I don't think he's even like junior high age. Although of course we're gonna push it forward. So obviously his father died when he was an infant, and within a year
Mhm.
she remarries Geyer. And for the first 14 years of his life, he went by Wilhelm Ricard Geyer.
Mm.
So this stepfather was father to him, and then of course then he dies, and some suspect or think maybe that was his biological father, right? As we've
Right.
described, he was coming around and comforting
He's
mother.
the comforting local actor.
Hey, listen, those character actors, they could sneak up on you before you know
They're
it.
charming.
Yes, they sort of have to be, don't they, if they want to work?
Yeah. It's the like no he's unassuming, he's a character actor, no one's
Right.
suspecting that
Absolutely.
he's doing anything untoward. He's
Yeah,
just
Yep. George
You know,
Clooney shows up. You
keeping
know
a
what? You know. You know what
keeping the
you
little
do.
woman company.
That's yeah, yeah. Just sitting there,
Just sitting.
keeping her company,
While
soothing
her
her.
policeman husband is off
Is
chasing
off
some
chasing
actresses.
actresses. Yes, yes. I think we have this idea that people in the
What
past
was
were
with this
also.
local theater company?
But listen, I mean, one of the greatest tweets of all time. I don't remember who tweeted it, but the tweet was, "You have to be so horny to make theater." And that seems to be true. Seems to be true. All right, I love that tweet. Okay, so listen to this. This is a good insight into sort of Wagner's state of mind as a child and how we would get the Wagner we know. I now turned once again enthusiastically to the theater to which my family remained very close. Needless to say, let me just interject here. There's no radio. There's no
Mhm.
TV. There's no nothing like that. There's no electronic media. So the theater is it. The theater was like the TV of the time. Like it was
Right.
like the Simpsons of the day would be this play that would spread throughout Europe like wildfire. Everybody had to see the play. They would see it multiple times. They knew the names of all the actors. They knew the writers. And they loved that stuff. I mean, that was it. That
Mhm.
was what you would go to. Like people would go to the movie theater, or stream now, right? You would binge
Yeah.
watch theater. All right. Okay. In particular, Freischütz, though mainly because of its spooky plot. I love that word.
Oh,
Oh, geez. Affected my imagination with characteristic intensity. The excitement of horror and fear of ghosts constitute a singular factor in the development of my emotional life. Ooh, spooky. From earliest childhood, certain mysterious and uncanny phenomena produced undue effects on me. Wagner was into the occult. Wagner was
oh,
into
really?
mesmerism. Wagner, there's a whole undercurrent. You could do an entire PhD on Wagner's, like the occult influence on Wagner for our people who are into that type of stuff.
Hmm.
I remember whenever I was alone in a room for any length of time and looked fixedly at such inanimate objects as pieces of furniture, suddenly bursting into a loud shriek because they seemed to me to come alive. Until late in my boyhood, no night passed without my awakening with a frightful scream from some dream about ghosts, which would
Wow.
end only when a human voice bade me be quiet. Severe scoldings or even corporal punishment would then seem to me redeeming kindnesses. None of my brothers and sisters wanted to sleep near me. They tried to bed me down as far from the others as possible, not stopping to think that by so doing, my nocturnal calls to be saved from the ghosts would become even louder and more enduring until they finally accustomed themselves to my nightly calamity.
Oh my gosh. That is some bad sleep paralysis.
I love that he's like, in my childhood, I awoke screaming every night from
Every night.
ghosts.
Oh my God.
Holy shit.
And inanimate objects coming to life.
Yes. Yeah, how to bake a genius, how to bake a German genius here. That's what we're doing. Don't tell the grandmother that her son has died, and we will use this later when she dies. She will die very soon. Do not worry. Do not look at the couch. Have you know? It's not like, don't look at it. Yeah, like what on earth? Holy moly! So, and of course, he was drawn to theater and literature before music. I've got a bit about his first writing of poetry. Once, when I was in the third form, a classmate named Stark died suddenly. And this event aroused so much sympathy that not only was the entire class permitted to attend the funeral, but the headmaster also commissioned a poem, or a poem,
Mm.
which they say, which was to be published to enhance the burial ceremony. Of the various poems submitted, including one hastily drafted effort of my own, none appeared to the headmaster worthy of the intended distinction, so that he announced in it, nine, none of these are all
All of you
shit.
children are terrible poets.
This was way before participation ribbons. Nobody got a participation ribbon in Wagner's childhood. Hell no. These poems are terrible, children. I love it. I love it. Um, his intention to compose a speech himself to replace the rejected attempts. Much distressed, I hurriedly went to see Magister Sillig to urge him to intervene on behalf of my poem. We then went
Oh.
over it. The well-constructed and well-rhymed eight-line stanzas induced him to revise its contents carefully. The poem had contained an agglomeration of strange images that went far beyond what a boy of my age could handle. I remember that in one part I had drawn heavily on the monologue in Addison's Cato, spoken just before the protagonist's suicide, having come upon this passage in an English grammar. The words, "The stars shall fade away, the sun himself grow dim with age, and nature sink in years," which were lifted directly from that monologue, made Sillig smile, somewhat to my discomfiture. Germans. Nonetheless, I owed to the care and celerity with which he knocked such excesses out of my poem that it was finally accepted by the headmaster, actually published, and distributed in numerous copies. We got a writer! Oh no, he's got a
Oh
taste of the
no.
writing bug.
A,
All
a,
right,
a writer who is like, no, my poem is not terrible, and I, I am going to
I
advocate for it.
we are gonna go and fix this poem, and it's gonna be the poem that is chosen.
My poem will be read at the dead child's funeral.
That's where we are. I and the ghosts will be there, and finally I will sleep at night. Like holy moly. Um, so the impact of this distribution among my classmates, and in particular of my family, was extraordinary. My mother folded her hands devoutly, and in my own mind, my future profession seemed clear. Beyond question, I was destined to be a poet.
Oh no.
And then he gets encouraged. Magister Sillig now wanted to see me attempt a major epic poem and suggested as material the Battle of Parnassus, etc. So you get the idea. So he's getting influenced by the Greek tragedians, and he was sort of imitating them and writing and all the rest of it. Um, from the direction my mind was taking, it is obvious that I did not devote much zeal to ordinary scholastic work. Greek mythology, legend, and finally history were all that interested me. An outgoing sort, I was always lively in the company of my schoolmates and ready to participate in any sort of wild prank. At that time, I was constantly forming almost passionate friendships with one or another of my comrades. So, okay, a little bit about him. He's a young poet. He's being encouraged, unfortunately. He's learning about Greek myth. And here's an insight into sort of his religious life and where he was even at that young age. His work is just wildly pagan. The stuff is just drawn from these pagan myths, except for Parsifal at the end. I mean, and there were, we'll talk this, I'll come to this when we talk about Wagner and women, but there's at least one woman said that every Christian should go and see Parsifal, It was like sort of that, influential. So that was pulled from, I think, the Grail myths. But he was a pagan. He had a pagan sensibility, right?
Mm.
And of course, because pagans can get away with almost anything, can't they, Abby? I mean, All right, so this is a little bit about his confirmation. By the time I was confirmed at Easter 1827, so we're talking about a 14-year-old now, Protestant, 14-year-old, I had a rather desolate view of this ceremony and felt a noticeable diminution of my reverence for church rituals. The boy who had gazed with painful longing at the altarpiece of the Kreuzkirche only a few years before, yearning to take the place of our Savior on the cross, that's not going to mess you up, had by now lost his respect for the clergyman whose confirmation classes he attended, being inclined to make fun of him, and even joining a conspiracy of classmates to withhold a part of the collection money intended for him and squander it on sweets. So they're stealing the collection.
Wow.
That's pretty rotten. I don't care what age
That
you
is
are.
pretty rotten.
If you're filching from the collection, there's a special place in Dante's hell for you. You're going to be buried. You're going to be buried in hot boiling pennies or something like that. I don't know. What a shithead move. If I found out one of my children was stealing from the collection, I have no idea what I would do. It would be I would go nuclear dad mode. It would be there'd be a year of punishment. I don't even know what I would do. In any case, how I really felt, however, was revealed to me almost to my own dismay when I walked with fellow confirmands in procession to the altar, and choir organ and singing burst forth at the partaking of Holy Communion. The shudder of emotion with which I received the bread and wine remained so unforgettable to me that in order not to spoil the impression, I never again went to communion, which was easy for me because such participation is not compulsory among Protestants. That is funny as hell. I'll just do it once, one time. That's all you need. You don't need to be in communion every week. Um, so yeah, there you go. Um, and he's writing verses. He's writing a tragic play. Um, The irregular habits I had acquired in this premature domestic independence induced my anxious mother to agree readily to my transfer to Leipzig. All the more so because a part of our widely scattered family had again landed there. So he ends up going to Leipzig. Um, that's so funny. And again, the writing here is very, very funny. He's very witty.
Hmm.
I mean, I think he's not hiding the fact he was a bit of a mess as a child. I mean, he's confessing to all of these things, but not in a way. It's not like he's begging favor or sort of going, this is why I am the way I am. I mean, I think, he knew, this was like published privately. I don't
Right.
believe this was published like in his lifetime, and then certain things were extracted from it. And it ends in 1864, which is an important, so we only get this is only up until 1864, and he would live
Oh,
for another X number of years. And certain things about Cosima, the second wife, you know about Cosima. You know anything about Cosima?
no.
Well, you're going to learn all about Cosima.
Okay.
Was like the editor. So this was a bit of a snow job. This was a bit of a we're gonna we gotta. He's an epic figure of the century. We have to make sure that he gets his story out, and it's
Right.
told in his manner. Okay, fun. So I have a little more here about this uncle, and then we'll start moving forward into the work.
So is the uncle who he goes to stay with?
I don't know that he's staying with the uncle, but the uncle is still coming around. I think he's at like day school. I think he's at schools,
Oh,
maybe
okay,
even
like a
like
boarding
boarding
school
type
or something.
schools.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see here. Okay, I'm going to read. This is good stuff. So be prepared. I'm going to read a little bit about this uncle. What attracted me most strongly in my uncle was his blunt yet still humorously expressed contempt for the modern pedantry of state, church, and school. The trifecta. Fuck 'em. State, church, school. I shouldn't say that. But you know what I'm saying. It's like, we got a bit of an anarchist on our hands here. He's a podcaster.
Oh no.
Oh no, this uncle would have been a podcaster. Well, his other views on life were quite moderate. He nonetheless impressed me as a truly free spirit. I was transported by his loathing for academic pedantry. One day, when I had gotten into serious trouble with the faculty of the St. Nicholas School, and the rector himself had directed a grave complaint about my behavior to my uncle as the only male representative of my family, he asked me very casually and with a smile during one of our communal walks around the town, as if addressing someone his own age, what I had against the people at the school. I explained the case to him and told him about the punishment to which I was condemned and which I considered unjust. He calmed me down and exhorted me to be patient, telling me to console myself with the Spanish proverb, un rey no pueda morir, which he construed as meaning that the monarch of a school must necessarily always be in the right. I have no idea what that Spanish means. Sooner or later, of course, he could not help noticing to his alarm the effect upon me of this kind of conversation. Whoops. Maybe don't talk to the troubled teenager like he's an adult.
No.
You're causing problems, which I was far too young to grasp fully. Got to be careful. Although I had been annoyed one day to be told when I wanted to take up Goethe's Faust that I would not yet be able to comprehend it, nonetheless, our lengthy discussions of great poets, even of Shakespeare and Dante, had made me, in my opinion, so familiar with these noble paragons that for some time I had secretly been busy writing the great tragic drama I conceived in Dresden. After falling out with the school, I devoted to the accomplishment of this task all the energies that should have gone into my schoolwork. In this secret activity, I had only one accomplice, my sister Ottilie, who now lived with me at our mother's. There you go. I remember the misgivings and alarm which my first confidential communication of this great poetic undertaking caused in my good-hearted sister. She nevertheless willingly endured the ordeals to which she was subjected by my reciting to her, clandestinely but by no means without emotional emphasis, portions of my work as it progressed. Once, when I was reading her one of the most gruesome scenes, a heavy thunderstorm broke out. When lightning struck in our neighborhood and the thunder crashed, my sister felt bound to implore me to stop. Yet she soon discovered the impossibility of convincing me to do so, and endured it with touching devotion to the end. Far more ominous storm clouds were now gathering in my life's horizon. My neglect of school reached the point that it would certainly lead to expulsion. While my mother had no presentiment of the approaching catastrophe, I awaited it with longing rather than with fear. To meet this crisis with dignity, I finally decided to surprise my family by disclosing the recent completion of my tragedy. Gonna get kicked out of school because he's busy writing a play. They were to be made aware of this great event by my uncle. I thought I could rely upon his cordial recognition of my predestined greatness as a poet as a result of our wide areas of agreement in all the important aspects of life, knowledge, and art. I therefore transmitted my voluminous masterpiece to him along with a comprehensive letter in which I communicated my unshakable intention not to allow my free development to be hampered by academic pedantry one day longer, feeling certain that he would be vastly pleased by this announcement. It turned out differently. No doubt. It was a great shock. My uncle, fully aware of his own guilt in the matter, paid a visit to my mother and my brother-in-law in order to excuse himself for what would perhaps be regarded as his pernicious influence by reporting about the misfortune that had thereby befallen the family. To me, he wrote a serious letter of reproof, and to this day I cannot understand why he showed so little humor in his verdict on my aberration, for he concentrated exclusively on his own sense of guilt for driving me to such eccentricity by our incongruous association, without attempting at all to set me straight as to where I had gone wrong. The crime the 15-year-old boy had committed was, as I said, a vast tragic drama called Leopold und Adelaide. Okay, and the manuscript has been lost.
So the uncles all chat until until the boy gets expelled
Right, right.
for writing a play.
Being too busy writing his play.
He's too
Yeah.
busy writing his play and torturing his sister with recitals.
And summoning thunderstorms, apparently. Donnerwetter. Okay. Great. Uh, Getting into music, of course, because we really haven't spoken about his youthful influence on the musical influences. Where are you at right now with young Ricard Geyer, Abby?
Um, well, I admire his artistic persistence, I guess.
Is he
It's
is he a
very, is he what?
is he a type you recognize? Do you feel like he's somebody you've met or you knew?
I don't know that I've ever met um a child like that. Like
Right.
if all of the all of my sort of peers when I was younger that were getting in trouble and getting expelled, it was for like, drugs and violence and stuff.
Right, right, right. Well,
It
yeah,
wasn't
right.
because they found
Sure.
school too like
Pedantic.
rigid and like pedantic and they needed to go off and explore their own things. I mean, there are definitely people I know like that that are like that, but they were not getting in trouble for
Uh, sure.
for genius at a young age.
Sure, right. It's a different sort of era. Yeah, interesting. Okay. Yeah, I feel like I mean, it just this like misfit.
Mm.
right? With in these and with no father figure, and then this uncle comes in,
Yeah.
and he doesn't like these church guys. He's like, I don't need that. And then the uncle comes in and starts talking to him like he's an adult. So he gets it into his head. Well, I'm just going to be a poet and write poetry. Why would I? I don't need to study math,
No.
logic.
Well, he's grown up around, I mean, and they're not even his own parents, but he's grown up around all these people who make art for a living.
Sure, right,
Um,
right. So why wouldn't
that, yeah,
you?
that's
Yeah,
not something we would have experienced really in small town New Zealand. So
sure, sure.
it's quite unique. It's
Isn't it?
almost like growing up in the circus, but not quite.
Ah, that's a good right. That's a good description of it. So let's get into his music, right? So um, music would take center stage for Wagner under the spell of Beethoven, and of course, Beethoven was still alive at that point, barely. In his teens, Wagner heard Beethoven's work performed in Leipzig, including the seventh, and then, of course, the ninth, which he heard at the Gewandhaus,
Mhm.
and that electrified him. He became an acolyte of Beethoven, even making a piano transcription of the Ninth Symphony in admiration. He knew he wanted to emulate Beethoven after he heard him. So another work also attracted, this is Wagner again. Another work also attracted me strongly. It was the overture in E major to Fidelio, in which the introduction gripped me especially. I asked my sisters about Beethoven and learned that news of his death had just been received. So again,
Mm.
so now his artistic hero, he finds this new hero, and it's like, well, he just died.
Oh,
Fun, 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 fun. Um, Still obsessed by the terrible grief caused by the death of Weber, another artist, this new loss of a great master who had just entered my life filled me with a strange anguish, a feeling somewhat akin to my childish dread of the ghostly fifths on the violin. I now wanted to learn more about Beethoven. I went to Leipzig and found on my sister's piano the music for Egmont. Then I tried to get hold of some of his sonatas. Finally, I heard a symphony of the master for the first time at the Gewandhaus concert, at a Gewandhaus concert. It was the A major symphony. Its effect on me was indescribable. On top of this came the added impact of Beethoven's physiognomy, as shown by lithographs of the time. Ah, we got some physiognomy happening. As well as the knowledge of his deafness and his solitary and withdrawn life.
yeah.
There soon arose in me an image of the highest supernal originality, beyond comparison without anything. This image melded with that of Shakespeare. In ecstatic dreams, I met both, saw and talked to them. Upon awakening, I was bathed in tears. So now the ghosts go away, and now he's having conversations with Beethoven and Shakespeare in his dream.
Wow.
Of Mozart, I now got to know the Requiem. That was the beginning of my enthusiastic absorption with this matter, who, with his finale to the second act of Don Giovanni, now joined my pantheon of spirits. Just as I had also tried to write poetry, I now had to try to learn to compose. Because this involves some highly complex techniques, there were many more difficulties than in the verses I tossed off so lightly. And it was these difficulties that led to my career taking on the outward appearance of that of a musician, and later, more particularly, this stamp of Kapellmeister and opera composer. And so now he wants to write incidental music for Leubald and Adelaide. So he's adding music to his poetic and dramatic sensibility. And here we have the germ of the great genius Richard Wagner. And we're going to start
And
calling him Richard Wagner now.
other than the his stepfather mentioning that he might have a talent, there hasn't been a lot about his journey as a kid growing up learning musical instruments, because presumably he must have been doing that in the background, or at
Yeah,
least the piano.
it would have been the piano. I mean, this would have been the period where everybody would have a go at the
Right.
piano. It was just what was done. Again, there's no radio, so if you want to have a little sing along song at Christmas time, somebody's got to get
Someone
on there
has to
and
play it.
bang out some chords.
Hmm.
So it would have been very common. It would have been unusual for and of course we already had a taste of the fact that at a much younger age he was already playing songs on the piano. So I imagine that had continued, but that's very different from wanting to compose like Beethoven.
Hmm.
And now you're starting to compose incidental music for your childhood, your first poem, play, tragedy. All right. So we're going to get into his career now. That's kind of act one of this. And we'll get into the second act here now. He also immersed himself in German folk tales and medieval
Hmm.
legends, which would later inspire his operatic subjects. By age 20, he had composed a symphony in C major in the vein of Beethoven that was performed in Prague and Leipzig. These early efforts show his formative influences, the classical romantic musical heritage of Mozart, Weber, and Beethoven, combined with a passion for drama and myth that he absorbed from literature. So I don't think, based on what I've covered, I don't think there's any mystery at the direction he's going to take. But it is a long and winding road from here to him having his own opera house in Beirut,
Hmm.
including just a lifetime spent in debt and begging
Right.
people for money and fleeing debtors. Okay, so I think this
Oh,
childhood is just this. I think I've painted the picture of who we have on our hands here. He would come up with this concept of Gesamtkunstwerk, total art. His life was like that. This was not a
Hmm.
guy who was going to go and get a normie job. This was not a guy was going to go work at the stamp factory. It would have been impossible for Wagner to do that. I mean, at a certain point, I think in Paris he was like transcribing music and like writing little bits and bobs, and even that he felt was beneath him. I mean, by this point, he's the great genius of 20th century or 19th
he's
century
just
music in his own mind.
stealing from the collection plate of life.
Stealing from the what of life?
The collection plate of life.
That's exactly it, right? So you steal if you're willing to steal from the collection plate, you will do anything, and we will see that he will do anything. But it's an example. There's almost like a Deus ex machina that happens, which is just incredible. And we'll come to it. Never give up, people. That's the Wagner story is never give up. Never abandon your dreams. Write your play, write your novel, make your podcast. Just be crazy. Just and always stick to the bit. Stick to the bit, people. All right. So,
Although I don't know what the likelihood of opening an opera house in Beirut would be currently,
well, it,
but
it depends. That you would need somebody like Peter Thiel or Elon Musk or one of these other billionaires to
it's
give you.
it's not going to be a king currently. It's
Sure.
definitely
Well,
going
it
to be a
would
CEO.
it would be yeah, it'd be an executive or yeah, exactly. And again, we will fly business class on Art of Darkness if you want to bring us to your town. We're available for children's parties. we'll we'll bring the
Are
woo.
we?
Well, I don't know. We have to get the show's lawyer to write up some paperwork. We'll get Dan Baltic to we'll get the Nut Man to write up some paperwork for us. All right, let's see here. Wagner's professional musical career began in his late teens with apprenticeships in provincial opera houses. His biography, there's like a sense that like he just did it himself. Of course, he didn't do it himself. He had training and people influenced him, and he wasn't just this total self-made genius, right?
Right.
You don't learn how to compose the way that he did just on your own, especially then. I mean, there's no YouTube videos, right?
Like composition is no joke. I have regular composers that I work with for filmmaking. And there was for the last film that we made, I actually went along to the live recording of the string quartet that was going to be playing the music for the film, and I you look through their score, like the conversations that they have with the musicians, like the types of decisions that have to be made. And I was like, my job as a director is so much easier than your job. Like composing is really hard.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something that I've never attempted and I will never attempt.
Mm.
So respect to the people out there
You
who are
don't have to be good at everything.
that's true. That is true. All right. So In 1833, at age 20, he became a chorus master in Würzburg, and over the next few years, he found work as a conductor in small theaters, struggling to establish himself while gaining practical experience. During these years, Wagner also started composing operas, determined to make his name as a dramatic composer. His first complete opera was Die Feen, or The Fairies, a romantic fantasy inspired by Weber's style, but it went unperformed in his lifetime. He followed this with Das Liebesverbot, the ban on love, or sort of the forbidden love, a, co- a comic opera loosely based on Shakespeare's Measure for Measure. Okay, so
Ah,
there's that Shakespeare influence. That work had a single performance in Magdeburg, where he was the music director at the time, before collapsing amid chaos. The second performance was canceled after the lead singers quarreled, and the opera was deemed a fiasco. Wagner, ever ambitious, was undeterred by these setbacks, and now, what does a struggling young man need? A young artist about German cities. What does a young man need now in his life, Abby, that will solve every problem and finally get him to settle down and and be somewhat normal? What does he need? A wife.
a wife.
He needs a wife. All right. So
I was
let's
about to say maybe he needs a war, but yeah,
well,
sure, a wife. Yeah.
sure, sure. All right. So let's get into we're gonna meet Minna Planner. Okay. Um and
And
mhm.
between this and the the Chanel episode, there seems to be a lot more fiascos at ballets and operas back in the day than there does these days.
Yeah, fiascos can still happen. It's just back then. I mean, in his stuff, there were numerous times where people were like, "This is unperformable. We cannot do this. What are you talking about?" Like even the Beirut stuff is just insane. The ring cycle's insane. There is a good version of the ring cycle by my Philistine tastes, right? By a company called Opera North that you can watch on YouTube. Uh, it's the Opera North ring cycle. I don't even know where they're north of. Let me see who these people are. Oh, it's Leeds. So
Okay.
it's in England, and it is a very very fine sort of film. It's a recording of it, and it has just enough little touches, and it's a very sort of simple production. The musicians are all on stage and foregrounded, so it's not like sort of in Wagner's direct style, but it's very
Hmm.
understated. The giants come out and they're in suits with red ties, and Wotan has a little gold bow tie. It's not this highly stylized production, but it's sort of suits itself for filming, and the sound is incredible. So if you want to watch the 14-hour ring cycle, you can watch an English company perform it on YouTube, like I did last night, late into the night. And listen, and the Valkyrie stuff is cool. Like when you hear bum when you hear that for the first time, you're like, hell yeah, that rocks. You go like that is some cool. And when you hear it in the context of the drama and everything, it's really incredible. So yeah, if you're not Wagner pilled yet, maybe you will be, and then that would be something I would go and consume. All right. So he meets Minna Planner, and Minna Planner was a German actress.
Like
And of
father, like
course,
son.
there you go. And so let's read a little bit, and this is just sort of here. Let's read. She was appearing in 1834 as part of Heinrich Eduard Bethmann's Magdeburg Theater Company during a summer season at Bad Lauchstadt, a spa resort near Halle. She was almost 25. And of course, in 1834, Wagner would be, let's do the math, Wagner would be 21. So she's older. And let's see. Richard Wagner had arrived in Laufstadt on the 1st of August, hey, yesterday, to investigate the offer of a position as conductor of the Magdeburg Company, and was unimpressed with the offer until he met Minna by chance while looking for lodgings for the night.
Sweetening the deal.
Ah, the 20-year-old Wagner changed his mind and accepted the contract in order to pursue her, taking rooms directly beneath hers. All right, so
So wait, at
this,
the age of 20 or 21, he was already the musical director of like
yeah,
somewhere else and had
yeah,
had an opera performed?
yes, oh yeah. I mean, this was again that when you talk about him at like 14 or 15, like they by 18, like it was like you're ready to go die on the front, right? You're ready to go
Right.
fight the French. Like if we have to fight the French again, you might be a commander who will run into the French swords, the French bullets, right? That's a different period, right? Yeah. So this is just straight from Wikipedia here. So let's see. Yeah. Minna's relationship with Wagner was stormy. Wagner was jealous and possessive, and there were frequent loud arguments, which usually ended with Minna in tears. Marriage is the
Oh,
solution to that. However, because that's going to get better. However, by the time the company returned to Magdeburg to open the season in October 1834, the two were lovers. All right. So let me get, I've got something from him here on Minna. Let me get the page. Yes. All right. Here we are. Boo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Let's see. With the advent of the new year in 1835, there came a decisive turning point in my life. After Minna and I had broken off our relations in Rudolstadt and had more or less lost track of one another, our association was resumed upon our reunion in Magdeburg, but only in a rather cool and intentionally indifferent manner. I learned that she had made a great hit here as at an appearance a year before, especially by her beauty, and that she had been particularly celebrated and visited by several young noblemen, a distinction to which she had shown herself not unreceptive. Although her reputation, thanks to her constantly earnest and dignified bearing, had remained truly beyond reproach, my repugnance against this kind of company, no doubt in part traceable to my recollection of unpleasant experiences in the ptI House in Prague, grew very strong. While Minna assured me that these gentlemen behaved far more modestly and circumspectly than theater fans of middle class background, and particularly more so than certain young music directors, she
huh.
never quite succeeded in conquering the bitterness and contentiousness with which I protested against these inclinations of hers. She's having suitors around, Abby. Noblemen. Ugh. J-
How dare she have
how
options?
That's right. And you have to understand Wagner was a socialist. I mean, this
Right.
shows up. So there's a whole big class thing, and you'll see Wagner's socialism gets him in a wee bit of trouble here coming up.
Ha!
Yeah. We thus spent 3 fruitless months in growing estrangement, while I pretended in half despairing self-abandonment to enjoy the company of a motley crew and behaved in every way with such blatant frivolity that Minna, as she later told me, was moved to sympathetic concern for me. Oh, that's a mating strategy. Just act like an ass and get the woman to be sympathetic. That works out. Hey boys, friendly incels out there, try that. Get the attention of an actress and then like nearly, yeah, act like a fool.
Uh,
Moreover, as the ladies of the opera troupe were not adverse to paying court in a rather questionable way to their youthful conductor, and one young lady of dubious reputation in particular had cast her net in my direction, this solicitude on Minna's part seems to have ripened forcibly into a decisive commitment. So he's playing that game where it's like, I don't need you. I'll just go with this strumpet over here. Right. We'll have a little showmance. I got the idea of treating the odd elite of our troop to oysters and punch in my room on New Year's Eve. The men were invited with their wives, and now it became a question whether I could persuade the unmarried Fräulein Planer, Minna, to participate in my little party. She accepted quite disingenuously and appeared neatly and becomingly dressed as always in my bachelor's quarters, where things soon became pretty lively. I had forewarned we're having oysters.
and punch.
And ugh, I don't know, man. Have a bucket. Doesn't sound very good. Yeah. I had forewarned the landlord about the uproar he could expect and had promised to compensate him for any damage to his furniture.
Uh-oh.
Rock and roll. What the champagne did not succeed in doing, the punch finally accomplished. What a great sentence. I'm gonna read it again. I love it so much. What the
I
champagne
need this
did
punch recipe.
absolutely. German punch and oysters dot
Oh
com.
God. There are
What
certain alcohols that you actually aren't allowed to drink with oysters because it'll make you really sick. Like
I'll
something
take
about the
yeah,
content of whatever it is in oysters
sure,
that
sure.
I think it's like whiskey or something. It'll
Oh,
yeah.
well,
You're
okay.
not
If
supposed to be
anybody
doing hard liquor
let
and oysters together.
if anybody, because I try not to drink, anybody out there who's a drinker, give it a shot. We want to hear, have some whiskey and have some
Or
oysters and
actually,
report back.
maybe don't.
Well, yeah, this is not financial advice, but if you do that, we would love to hear it. Artofdarkpod@gmail.com. We love hearing from people. I would really love to know how bad that is. One more time. What the champagne did not succeed in doing, the punch finally accomplished. All restraints of the scanty conventionality which my companions sought to respect most of the time were exploded. And by unanimous consent, general merriment ensued. And then it was that Minna distinguished herself by a calm and regal bearing from all her companions. She never lost her dignified composure. Nobody dared take the slightest liberty with her, and even more meaningful, in fact, utterly sobering, was the effect on everyone produced by the way Minna responded serenely to my kindly and solicitous attentions, whereby it became clear to the whole group that the link which bound us could not be compared to any usual affair. We had the particular satisfaction of seeing the young lady of doubtful repute. So it was Mademoiselle Christiana Ney Wunsch, that was her name, of ill repute, who had so openly angled for me, have conniptions over this discovery.
This poor
Okay.
woman,
Minna or the ill repute?
the one who was used in the plot to make Minna jealous.
Yeah, and now she's forever marked as a woman of ill repute with the surname Wunsch. Right? So in history, be careful out there.
In
Listen,
history.
writers make history.
Don't
So
associate with writers.
don't. So well, it depends. It depends on how friendly the writer is, and how sober. Um, From now on, I remain continually on good terms with Minna. I do not believe she ever felt any sort of passion or genuine love for me, or was even capable of it, but can only describe her feelings for me as a kind of hearty goodwill, the sincerest desire for my success and prosperity, the friendliest interest and good natured delight in characteristics of mine that often filled her with amazement, all of which finally blended into a constant and comfortable habit of mind. Who needs love for marriage? I mean, really, ask yourself that. If Wagner apparently didn't. She obviously thought highly of my talent and was surprised and captivated by my unexpectedly quick string of successes, my eccentric nature, which she knew so well how to humor by genial moderation, stimulated her to continual exercise of this power, slow flattering to her self esteem, and without ever evincing any desire or real ardor herself, she never requited my impetuous advances with any coldness. That's Minna. Okay. All right. So,
Because
first
she's like,
wife.
you're a child.
The young man who finds an older woman is a dynamic that is not discussed, right? So there it is. He's
Hmm.
younger and he marries Minna. So a little more here. So he writes his brother Alfred that they're engaged, and here's a letter from Wagner to Minna in May of 1835. My dear, dear, my own unique girl, already more than 24 hours apart from you after I have so often treasured every minute. What will come of this? I am lost in my misery and tears, and I can find joy in nothing, nothing whatever. You have become too dear to me, I am sure of that, you dear and lovely child. How can I become accustomed so soon to our separation? How can I bear your absence? You have become part of me, and without you I feel in all my limbs as if a part of me were missing. Alas, if you felt only half my longing, then you too would be filled with love and memories. I still wept after you had gone.
That's
Having big feel
intense.
He's having big feelings.
Yeah,
We would say now he's love bombing.
I believe that is love bombing. Yes. You've only been gone
I am
a
still
short
weeping.
while.
I'm still weeping that you have left. Listen, if you ever feel that way, hey, good. Maybe just don't write it down.
Good for you.
Good for you.
Maybe just breathe.
Right.
Just li
That
lie down.
take have
Take
a
some
lie
breaths.
have a lie down. Maybe call somebody, talk to a
Maybe eat
specialist.
something.
Right.
Read a
Right.
book.
Yep. Have a snack.
Watch a
Have
movie.
some punch and oysters.
You have
Have some
punch and
oysters.
oysters.
You can treat yourself. You can go to the movie alone. You really can. Um, just what a funny letter. That's like the sort of epistolary equivalent of like a triple text,
Yeah.
right? And she's leaving you on read. Just bam, bam, bam.
I've
What a fun time.
I've looked it up. It's the bacteria in the shellfish that can
Ah,
react in your stomach with
ah,
some alcohols, and yeah,
I see.
it's food poisoning essentially.
Let's not do that. Yeah, so I take back what I said earlier. Be careful out there. But if you do have some punch and oysters, let us know. That sounds like a fun. When we have an Art of Darkness gathering or party in the future, that might be what we serve is sort of punch and oysters. So we can general by
Right.
consensus, general merriment can ensue because that's what people want, isn't it? Merriment,
Merriment. Although
merriment.
not too many, I'm not made of punch and oysters money.
Sure, sure. Well, again, patreon.com/art of dark side. Keep us in punch and oysters, people. We appreciate it. Appreciate all the support. And support comes in lots of ways, right? If you're not going
Mhm.
to swipe the credit card, share the show with somebody. Tell people, hey, listen to this crazy Ricard Wagner episode. I had no idea he was that insane. All right. So in November of 1835, Minna, dissatisfied with the Magdeburg troop and probably with Wagner as well, left suddenly to take a role at the Königstadt Theater in Berlin. Wagner was wild with despair and implored her to come back and marry him. Minna eventually agreed to return, but stayed only to the end of the season in Magdeburg before heading to Königsberg to join the local theater company while Wagner looked for work in Berlin. Failing in this, he joined Minna in Königsberg and attempted a menial position as a junior conductor. Minna married Wagner in Trogheim Church on the 26th of November, 1836, where they argued even in front of the minister who was to marry them.
The minister's like, you don't have to do this.
They're already lovers, right? So they're just stamping the seal here, right? All right. So here's a little bit about their early married years. I've just mostly been reading from Wagner's biography. Eventually, I will get into the Wagnerism book. There's a lot of good stuff in that too. We're on page 4 of the 26-page outline. Woohoo!
No.
I'll do my best. I will push forward. Um, I just love this stuff. It's just so fascinating. Minna soon found that being Wagner's wife was not the route to respectability that she craved. Of course, like an actress is not. It's not the most even. It's just not the most respectable
Mhm.
career, right? So she wants to be, a lady. I mean, in that dignified thing he's describing, that's not a joke. Like for an actress to behave that way, you can kind of get the sense of what else was going on. These are bohemian types. These are artists. Uh,
Should have stuck
Wagner.
with one of those noblemen.
Really, I guess I don't know. It's just so tough though. You have a life on the stage, and then these guys show up, and what are they going to do? They're gonna start putting babies in you, and
Yeah.
ensconce you in their whatever
I
their
I
villa.
loved you in that play. Let me now trap you in a house.
That's pretty much it, right? Wagner continued to run up debts, and Minna frequently had to deal with creditors, not only from Königsberg, but also from Wagner's previous expenditure in Magdeburg. Okay, now we're leaving a trail of debts. And this isn't like, oh, I owe Citibank $8,000 on a credit card. These are debts from specific people,
Hmm.
landlords. It's tied to cities. There isn't this big, global financial system. And you can get a
Is
bad
this why he
reputation.
hates Jewish people?
Well, I'm not, Abby, you said it, I didn't say it. I don't know how much of the debts were owed to which ethnicity or not, but there may be a certain resentment against yeah, for that too. Wagner's position brought in little money, and Minna's continued popularity on stage meant that she was the main breadwinner. Okay, that's great. You marry the
Hmm.
older woman, and she's the one making the money. That's going to be good because women
And
aren't
she's an actress.
hypergamous. Yeah. She continued to have admirers, and on the 31st of May, 1837, less than a year after being married, she ran away from Wagner with a local businessman named Dietrich, uh, taking taking her daughter with her. So she had a daughter. I sort of skipped by that. Let me.
Previously.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Let me find
Oh,
the business about the daughter. I have to cover that. She had
so
an
Wagner was a stepdad.
Wagner had become a stepdad. That's an important point that I had neglected. At an early age, she had an illegitimate daughter with a Royal Saxon army officer whom she raised as her sister.
Oh, one of those.
Okay. Okay. So again, so she's looking for respectability. I think we can see why.
Mhm.
Isn't that fascinating? Okay. I love this. This is interesting. Um, oh my God, there's no paragraph breaks here. It's just one long paragraph. Um, okay, let's see. So they're in Königsberg. Together with my unceasing participation in the day-to-day work of the theater, this kept me so busy and away from the house so frequently that I really could not pay much attention to Minna's silent and reserved deportment during those days. On the morning of March 31st, I took leave of Minna, expecting to be detained by rehearsals and business matters until late in the afternoon. Sometime before, she had, with my hearty approval, summoned her daughter Natalie, whom she let everyone believe was her younger sister. Ugh. When I was about to say my usual goodbye, both women rushed after me to the door and embraced me passionately. Minna and her daughter both bursting into tears, so that I became alarmed and immediately inquired about the meaning of all this, but received no answer from them. I was obliged to leave and then ponder this strange conduct, the true reason for which I did not come close to guessing. I arrived home late in the afternoon, worn to a frazzle by my exertions, irritated, dead tired, pale, and hungry, only to find the table not laid and Minna not at home, the maid telling me that she had not yet returned from a walk with Natalie. I collected myself to wait patiently and sat down exhausted at the sewing table, which I proceeded to open absent-mindedly. To my astonishment, it was empty. Struck by frightful foreboding, I sprang up and went to the clothes closet and realized at once that Minna had left the house. Her departure had been so cunningly planned that even the maid had known nothing about it. With death in my heart, I rushed out of the house to investigate Minna's disappearance. Old Moller, Dietrich's sworn enemy, soon found out with his practiced eye for such things that he had left Königsberg that morning by special coach in the direction of Berlin. The horrible truth now stared me in the face. I simply had to try and overtake the fugitives. This seemed possible with a lavish expenditure of money, but that was lacking and first had to be laboriously collected. On Muller's advice, I took along the silver wedding presents for possible emergency use, and after a delay of several horrible hours, set off with my distressed old friend, also by special coach. It seemed certain that we would overtake the ordinary mail coach that had left a short time before, and it appeared a foregone conclusion that Minna would use this to continue her journey once it had reached a safe distance from Königsberg, but this proved impossible. Reaching Elbing at dawn the following day, we found our funds depleted by the extravagant use of the special coach and saw ourselves forced to turn back, discovering that even to return by regular coach, it would be absolutely necessary to sell the sugar box and cake dish. This journey um, this journey back to Königsberg justifiably remains as one of the saddest memories of my young life. Of course, I did not think for a minute of staying in the place, but only of how to get away. Caught between the lawsuits of my Magdeburg creditors and the Königsberg tradesmen who had claims on me for installment payments on my household furnishings, my departure necessarily had to be carried out in secret. But for this, I again needed money, particularly considering the distance from Königsberg to Dresden, where I had to go in search of my wife. This held me back for 2 terrible days. There was no news for me from Minna. It was only through Muller that I learned that Minna had gone to Dresden, accompanied by Dietrich, part of the way, supposedly as a friendly demonstration of helpfulness. In the belief that she had really only wished to escape from a situation that filled her with desperation, accepting for this purpose the assistance of a man who had been moved to sympathy at her predicament, and that she was now seeking asylum with her parents, my initially furious reaction at this step softened to such an extent that I even began to reproach myself for my behavior and for having brought her such unhappiness, and to feel increasing commiseration with her despair. I became so convinced of the correctness of this way of looking at it during the tedious journey to Dresden via Berlin, which I eventually undertook on June 3rd, that when at last I found Minna in the humble abode of her parents, I was quite unable to express anything other than repentance and heartbroken sympathy. It turned out that Minna had indeed felt herself ill treated by me and declared that she had been forced to take this drastic step solely because of our untenable situation, to which she thought me both blind and deaf. Her parents were not pleased to see me.
You owe all sorts of people money. You're living off our daughter. You're somehow employing a maid.
Right, right. There's always a maid who shows up when you're like you're in fantastic debts, and yet there's also a maid, a different time. Um, Their daughter's overwrought condition seemed to give ample justification for her complaints about me. Whether my own sorry state, my hasty pursuit, and all my outpourings of grief made a favorable impression on her, I can hardly say. So confused and even incomprehensible was her ambivalent attitude toward me. Yet it did impress her when I told her there were good prospects of my getting the job of music director in a theater soon to be opened in Riga under the most promising auspices. I didn't think it wise to press her at the time for further decisions concerning the resolution of our future relationship, but rather concluded I must strive all the more earnestly to provide a better foundation for them. With this in mind, and after spending a miserable week together under the most trying circumstances, I went off to Berlin to conclude the urgent business of signing my contract with the newly appointed director of the Riga Theater. This was accomplished, and in fact, under not unfavorable conditions, which offered me the possibility of setting up house in such a way that Minna could withdraw from the theater entirely and thereby be in a position to spare me humiliation and anxiety in the future. So he has a position that's going to let her get out of the theater, because the theater is basically just like the wolves are at the door. If you're in,
Mm.
if you're an actress in the theater, it's just the way it was. Returning to Dresden, I found Minna ready to lend a not unwilling ear to my plans and persuaded her to leave the cramped parental home for the moment to take up residence in Blasowitz, in the country not far from Dresden, until it was time for me to begin my work in Riga. We took modest lodgings at the inn on the Elbe, whose garden restaurant I had often visited as a child. Minna's mood seemed to improve greatly. She had asked me not to press her too hard, and I responded by sparing her as much as possible. Okay. And then her mood deteriorates again. She starts talking about advantageous offers she was receiving from various theaters, and startled me one day with the announcement of a little pleasure trip she proposed to take with the family of a childhood friend. And it goes on. Yeah, I think we can get you have the impression of what this marriage is like. Uh,
Hmm.
it's a fucking mess.
Yeah. So Riga as in Latvia?
Let me see where Riga is. It may be. Yeah, it looks like it's in Latvia. Hmm. Yeah, so I mean, this is a pan-European, sort of like,
Mm.
you're just taking work wherever you can. I mean, yeah, yeah. So there you go. I mean, he's almost like an academic, right? Where you just have to
Mm.
like take whatever job you can, wherever you can get it. And you're going to take a coach or a train, well, probably a coach to get out there, and that's how you're going to
Well,
live
in
your life.
a different country from your creditors is probably a good place to be.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yes. So there you go. But the next, guess what the next section is called? The next
What
section
is
of
it
the
called?
outline is called "Flight from Riga." What do you? I mean, it's not going to get better. They teach you this like in sales, like in business. They go if a relationship with a client starts with like red flag after red flag, it's never going to get better. You just
Hmm.
have to just sometimes be willing to just let it go. And I think at this point it's a little late because you're married now,
Hmm.
and she's going back to her parents' place and talking about taking on and having affairs. She's got her sister daughter with
Your
her.
sister daughter.
What a mess. All right. So
I mean,
they
that
live
sister daughter must be like, can I just be your sister and remain here with your parents, please? No,
unbelievable.
no more of this.
Unbelievable. Okay. So they're in Riga. Uh, let's read some more here from Wagner. Uh, I'm just going to jump right in. So he desires to escape the petty degradations of work in a small theater. So he's not happy. New
Hmm.
complications entered his life, my life, which affected me more and more seriously and placed new obstacles in the way of his endeavors. The prima donna Holtai had engaged. Holtai, so it must have been the director of the theater, had not shown up. We found ourselves without a singer for the more serious operatic works. In these circumstances, the director gladly accepted my suggestion that we should waste no time in summoning to Riga Amelie, Minna's sister, who was pleased to accept an engagement that would let her work with me. From Dresden, where she was staying at the time, she also notified me in her answer of Minna's return to her parents, as well as of the sorrowful and suffering condition aggravated by severe sickness in which she now was. Minna's left again. I naturally took this piece of news very coldly. What I had learned of Minna since she had last left me had necessarily impelled me to give my old Königsberg friend the task of commencing divorce proceedings on my behalf. They would not get divorced at this point. It was certain that Minna had spent quite a long time in a hotel in Hamburg with that accursed Herr Dietrich, and had proclaimed our separation with such disregard for the consequences that the whole theatrical world in particular was buzzing about the subject in a manner most dishonorable for me.
Uh-oh.
So the theater world is talking about how he's being cucked. Okay. Wagner the cuck. I simply informed Amelie of this and asked her to spare me any further reports about her sister. So Wagner is in this mess, right? And he's like, I have a job for your sister.
Her
Okay.
actual sister.
Her actual sister, right? I got a job for her. She's coming to Riga. You're over there getting stooped by Dietrich. Everybody's talking about it. You see how it's just so messy and
Yeah,
scandalous. It gets worse. Um, it gets worse before it gets better. Um, Minna herself appealed to me with a truly shattering letter in which she openly confessed her unfaithfulness. Just as she had been driven to this by despair, so had she now been brought back from this path by despair over the misery into which she had plunged herself. Certain hints led to the conclusion that she had been duped as to the character of her seducer, and through recognition of her frightful situation, had fallen into a debilitating condition morally as well as physically, from which, sick, suffering, and admitting her guilt, she now turned back to me in order to beg my forgiveness and to assure me that she had now, for the first time, become fully aware of her love for me. I had never heard such words from Minna before, and I was never to hear them again, except in one touching moment many years later. Um, so yeah, let's see. I wrote her back telling her that I gave myself most of the blame for what had happened and promised that the subject would never be mentioned again between us again. And I can say with some pride that I carried out this vow to the last syllable. As the appointment of her sister was settled in a satisfactory manner, I invited Minna to accompany her at once to Riga. Both gladly accepted my invitation and arrived from Dresden at my new home in October. I saw immediately to my sorrow that Minna's health had truly suffered, and so did everything in my power to provide her with the domestic comfort and quiet she needed. Okay, so there we are. More about that marriage. It seems important to be covering that, and just an incredible disaster of a marriage. One of the worst marriages we've had in Art of Darkness. Nothing will top Burroughs, of course, shooting his wife in the head in Mexico. But this is uh, this is a tough one. This is not good. This is not going to lead to a lot of good stuff. All right, so
Also,
yeah,
we're talking about 20-something-year-old theater kids.
right, right. It's important to remember that. Um, so yeah, he loses the job here. Okay,
Oh,
so he loses his post in 1839. Let's catch his age again. So he is 26 at this point, 26, 27. We know he doesn't join the 27 club, so everybody relax. There's still more to come. Uh, and he loses the job, and this is a really fun little adventure. Uh, he then decided on a wild scheme to evade his creditors, as you do. He and Minna, together with their dog Robber, would flee across the nearby Russian border and board a ship bound for London and then travel on to Paris, where Wagner expected that his new opera Rienzi would make his fortune. Okay. So this opera Rienzi, just real quick, I'm just going to Wikipedia. Um, it was written between 1838 and 1840. It's set in Rome and is based on the life of Cola di Rienzo, a late medieval Italian populist figure who succeeded in outwitting and then defeating the nobles and their followers in raising the power of his people. All right, so you're getting a sense of Wagner's politics there as well.
it feels
In
like a long way around to get to Paris.
Well, I think they had their passports taken
Oh,
at
okay.
one point. I think they're fucked.
Right.
And so Minna made her last stage appearance in Riga on 18th of April in the role of Schiller's Maria Stuart. It was her income from this appearance that paid for their flight from Riga to London and Paris. On July 10th, they made their illegal border crossing safely, despite the risk of being shot by border guards.
Wow.
But on July 14th, they were in a wagon which overturned, crushing Minna. Natalie later claimed, the sister daughter, later claimed that Minna suffered a miscarriage as a result.
Oh,
There's no evidence for this, but Minna bore Wagner no children. Okay. And this is at a period of time where the pullout game isn't strong, right? Like
right.
you know what I mean? There's no birth
Well, and
control.
they're
Yeah.
married and
Sure. Yeah. Right. I'm just trying to imagine Wagner, sort of sentimentally using the rhythm method or something. It's impossible to imagine. Wagner's not gonna. Yeah. Anyway, yuck. I don't know why I'm thinking about this. Minna and Wagner.
uh
Well, because it's in the episode. Okay, it's Art of Darkness, people. Um, Minna and Wagner set
he
sail
hadn't
from.
composed that music yet.
Right, 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 right. Well, we're gonna again on the After Dark. We're gonna talk more about how his music was thought to cause orgasms. It was dangerous, scandalous for the ladies. Minna and Wagner set sail from Palau on the Thetis and ran into a storm which led them to berth in a Norwegian fjord. So if you've got Norwegian fjord on your bingo card, okay. So I'm just going to read some of this. I mean, I could read this whole thing. It's just fascinating, right? There are like, yeah. I mean, our decision was influenced by the state of our own purse. The total proceeds from my arduous labors amounted to little less than 100 ducats, which not only had to finance the trip, but also our stay in Paris till I was able to earn something. So, I mean, they're on their way and they are escaping. The clumsy carriage tipped over in a farmyard, and Minna was so badly shaken up internally by our fall that we had to spend a night in the farmhouse, to which I had to drag her lame and totally helpless with the greatest difficulty. The people were dirty and surly, and the night was highly unpleasant for my suffering wife. And it goes on. So they get on a ship, all right? Since the captain had to take us on board without passports, The embarkation itself was also fraught with special difficulty for us. We had to try to slink past the harbor police in a little boat and board ship before daybreak. Once we got there, and after having hauled Robber up the steep shipside with great effort and without causing a ruckus, we had to go and hide below deck in order that those visiting the ship before it sailed would not notice us. At last, the anchor was weighed, and as we saw the land slowly recede from view, we thought we could breathe more easily and feel more comfortable. This is like a movie. It's crazy. We were on board a merchant vessel of the smallest class. It was called the Thetis, had a bust of the nymph at the bowsprit, and had a complement, including the captain, of 7 men. Given the good weather to be expected in the summertime, it was thought that the voyage to London would take 8 days, but we were already held back by prolonged calm. We had gotten out of the before we had gotten out of the Baltic. I used my leisure to proceed a little further in my knowledge of French by studying a novel. Blah, blah, he's studying French, which is what we should do. Our association with members of the crew also provided us some entertainment. We especially had our eye on one taciturn old sailor named Koska, chiefly because our otherwise good-natured robber had taken an irreconcilable dislike to him, a fact that was to
No.
cause us some preposterous trouble in a moment of danger. After 7 days sailing, we'd gotten no further than Copenhagen, where we took the opportunity, without leaving the vessel, of supplementing our meager ship's rations by various purchases of food and drink. In cheerful spirits, we sailed on past the beautiful castle of Elsinore, the sight of which brought back my youthful impressions of Hamlet, and now proceeded, hopefully, through the Kattegat to the Skagerrak, when the wind, which at the outset had been merely adverse and had forced us to a lot of arduous tacking, suddenly on the second day of this leg turned into a storm. For a full 24 hours, we had to struggle against it, while Minna and I endured sufferings quite outside our previous experience. Cooped up in the captain's pitifully small cabin, without a berth adequate even for one of us, we were prey to seasickness and every kind of fear. Unfortunately, the brandy cask, at which the crew from time to time fortified themselves, was stowed under the bench on which I lay, and it happened to be Casca who came most frequently to pester me in search of this refreshment, despite the necessity each time of engaging in mortal combat with Robber, who went after him and him only with inexhaustible fury whenever he came clambering down the narrow steps. This in turn compelled me, quite worn out as I was by seasickness, to exertions that rendered my condition virtually catastrophic. At last, on the 29th of July, the captain was forced by a fierce westerly wind to put in at a port on the Norwegian coast. Okay. So you get the idea. So they're fleeing
Uh,
their creditors. Not good. It's just not working out, you know. And it took 24 days for them to take what would normally be an 8 day trip.
8 day trip. Uh,
8 days, 24 days, 24 days, the better part of a month to get to London, to escaping your creditors, as you do. This would influence what I believe was his most successful, like, sort of commercially successful play, The Flying Dutchman. Have you heard of The
hmm.
Flying Dutchman?
I have heard of the Flying Dutchman.
Well, this experience, he turned a bad experience into art. Okay, and that's the thing that you can do. You can do that. And I'm at operavision.eu here, and it's called. This is about the Flying Dutchman. Richard Wagner married the German actress Wilhelmina Minna Planner in the winter of 1836. Their relationship was tempestuous, with the jealous and possessive composer's outbursts frequently leaving Minna in tears. The actress also struggled to deal with her husband's debts and threats from his creditors. Within 6 months, she left him for another man. To escape the fiasco, Wagner moved to Riga, then in the Russian Empire, where the 26-year-old became music director of the court theater and engaged Minna's sister as a singer. Wagner's wife eventually decided to join him in Riga, but their lifestyle was lavish beyond their means and led to more unpayable debts. The couple planned to run from their creditors, but having suspected such a plan, the authorities confiscated their passports, going back over what we know. Undeterred, despite the risk of being shot by border guards, they crossed illegally into Prussia. They then took a wagon to the coast, but it overturned en route, crushing Minna and causing her a miscarriage. Possibly. They finally made it to the port of Pillau, now Baltisk, in Kaliningrad, and set sail for London on board the ship Thetis, which ran into a storm and was forced to berth in a Norwegian fjord. The weather and the shoreline made an impression on Wagner's imagination, and he asked the sailors about the legend of the Flying Dutchman. Okay, and so that is where this idea for the Flying Dutchman comes into his head. And so now they end up in Paris. All right. And they spent the years 1839 to 1842 in Paris, enduring severe poverty. And his plan failed. The Paris Opera was not interested in producing either Rienzi or his newest work, Die Fliegende Holländer. Okay. And let's just read a little bit about the Flying Dutchman, because it's a very popular Wagner opera, early opera. So, yeah, he'd been inspired to write the opera following the stormy voyage. He acknowledged that he had taken the story from Heinrich Heine's retelling of the legend in his 1833 satirical novel, The Memoirs of Mr. von Schnabelowski. That's a tough one. It's so let's see here. I mean, it's about a man who has to like. So here, Wagner wrote the first prose draft of the story in Paris in May 1840, based on the story which I just mentioned Heinrich Heine. In Heine's tale, the narrator watches a performance of a fictitious stage play on the theme of a sea captain cursed to sail forever for blasphemy. Heine introduces the character as a wandering Jew of the ocean, and also added the device taken up so vigorously by Wagner in this and many subsequent operas. The Dutchman can only be redeemed by the love of a faithful woman. All right. In
Mhm.
Heine's version, this is presented as a means for ironic humor. However, Wagner took this theme literally,
Oh
and in
no.
his, and, and in his draft, the woman is faithful until death. All right, so that is the kind of the idea of the Flying Dutchman. And he would finally meet that woman, and we're gonna come to the man who would, introduce him to that woman,
Mhm.
Franz Liszt. All right. And do you know anything about Franz Liszt,
I
Abby?
do not.
Okay. So they would meet in 1841 in Paris. At one point in Paris, Wagner was imprisoned for debt, and Minna had to
Oh,
beg the
wow,
Germans.
wow. I
Yeah.
would
Oh,
never
yeah.
have guessed.
Bad news. Yeah. Just like at a certain point, you land in a city like Paris where they are not fucking around. Okay. The French are not, you're some German eccentric, you're moving into a flat, you're not paying your bills, you're living beyond your means, and at a certain point they just will just come by and grab you and put you away because they need to send a message. It's not like you can just declare bankruptcy and get out of it. The debt isn't abstract like it would be now, where it's just like
What
Citibank.
what
Yeah.
what is it about his character that made him think he could just get away with this over and
He
over and over?
he believes that he's the greatest composer of the
Right.
century,
So like
right?
paying
Like,
bills is above him.
yeah, right. Of course, if below him, yeah, yeah. Like
Below him, sorry. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. But below him, above him, everywhere.
Yeah.
Paying bills is
Yeah.
just anywhere, but yeah, he's just that guy. I mean, and his mind is not on the bills. His mind is on the Flying Dutch. He's already writing operas,
Hmm.
right, that are still performed to this day, right? So he is a genius, right? So there's probably a certain amount of just entitlement and also just plain old stupidity. Like these are young theater kids. I don't think anybody ever sat Wagner down and explained probably compound interest to him. He's
You're just like,
too.
oh, yay, money. Let's
Yeah.
throw a punch party.
Yeah, right. Punch and oysters. I was going to call this. I was going to call this episode Ricard Wagner Total Art, but now I'm going to call it Ricard Wagner Punch and Oysters because that's better. Just making the change there on the old episode, and of course, people who subscribe, our dear patrons, get the core episodes a week early. All right, so those folks will get it straight away, and then it'll go into wide release a week from now. Please support the pod, patreon.com/art of dark pod. We need your support. We need shekels. We need your dollars. It edifies us. It fortifies us. It keeps us going. And again, we're going to do 12 of these this year and then a bunch of dark rooms. That's our commitment to you and our promise. And then we have a lot of extra fun stuff behind the paywall for people, including the After Dark episodes. This one's going to be a long one. All right. So he meets Liszt. Okay. And earlier I said I was making a list and
Hmm.
checking it twice. Yeah, I had to say it. Liszt was a Hungarian composer, virtuoso pianist, conductor, and teacher of the Romantic period. He was super, people will still listen to Liszt. He achieved success as a concert pianist from an early age. It was just a big deal. And Wagner meets him in Paris in 1841 in a very one-sided encounter. Liszt admitted he didn't remember the meeting. Wagner never forgot it. You know, Wagner was an unknown, and Liszt just didn't remember meeting him. Okay, but we're going to track
Hmm.
their relationship all the way through to the very, very end, because their lives would become entwined. So his opera Rienzi is accepted in Dresden, and that allows him to leave Paris in 1842. Okay. So that opera about the populist, okay, is accepted in Dresden, and he's able to get out of there. So now he finally gets his artistic breakthrough. And how is he going to fuck this up? How is he going to blow this?
How's he gonna fuck
In
this up?
Yeah, exactly. So he finally achieves the breakthrough with Rienzi in Dresden. The opera premiered at the Dresden Court Theater in October of 1842 and was a huge success. Audiences thrilled to Rienzi's grand pageantry and heroic arias. It was very much in the flashy style of French grand opera, calculated to impress. He's trying to, I need a hit. I need a hit. I gotta have a hit. I need the money. I mean, this is not a joke. This isn't like you're not LARPing as as a composer who occasionally, who also works for, IBM. I mean, this is like,
Hmm.
this is it. Okay. So he was appointed on the strength of Rienzi. He was appointed the Royal Kapellmeister, the music director, to the Saxon court in Dresden. He would spend the next 6 years in that city, premiering a series of new operas and evolving his style. Now, Liszt hears Rienzi, okay, and he's electrified. The two meet again in Berlin, and Wagner mails Liszt full scores of Rienzi and Tannhauser, which is another opera we'll talk about, begging for advocacy, saying, "Listen, look at this stuff. Like, please help." And now he produces The Flying Dutchman and Tannhauser on the Dresden stage. So Dutchman in 43, Tannhauser in 45. The Dutchman was a shorter opera, or is a shorter opera, rich with big tempestuous orchestral writing evoking the sea. And this is where critics start to note the use of leitmotif to
Hmm.
represent characters like the Dutchman and I assume the lover. And now Tannhauser is another opera that is still performed. It's based on two German legends: Tannhauser, the mythologized medieval German messenger and poet, and the tale of the Wartburg Song Contest. The story centers on the struggle between sacred and profane love, as well as redemption through love, a theme running through most of Wagner's work. It is very beautiful. You can go and listen to Tannhauser. It's good stuff. So he's delving into the themes of spiritual redemption. It premiered in 1845, got mixed reviews. Some found it too new. Like, what are we doing? What is this? He's moving away from the traditional opera,
Right.
which would focus on arias and sort of set pieces and everything. He just was finally forging his own style. And it's a repertory staple, Tannhauser. By the mid 1840s, Wagner was establishing himself as a leading young composer conductor, but he was also increasingly drawn into radical politics of the era.
Oh.
So he's working for the court. Now remember this, he's working for the court. Europe was seething with revolutionary sentiment. What year are we coming up to? Coming up to 1848, which is a big, 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 big year of revolution. And Dresden was no exception. Wagner befriended anarchists and Republican activists. He was friends with Mikhail Bakunin, the famous, activist of the period, and became an impassioned supporter of the 1848 revolution that swept through the German states. He saw political revolution and artistic revolution as allied causes, a way to overthrow the old order and art and society alike. In 1848 and 1849, Wagner participated in meetings of revolutionaries and wrote fiery articles. When an armed uprising against the King of Saxony erupted in Dresden in May of 1849, Wagner took part on the insurgent side, serving as a sort of propagandist and even helping at the barricades. There are suggestions that like he was handing people grenades. He's finally got a good post, by the way.
Grenades?
Yeah, oh yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to read
I'm
from the.
surprised they even had grenades back then.
Oh, I think they had something like that. Yeah, yeah, something like that. They must have because they had dynamite and stuff. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
maybe.
yeah, of course they did.
When was dynamite invented?
I can look that up.
Yeah, I could also let my voice. Dynamite was invented in 1867, so dynamite
Okay.
wasn't quite invented yet. But in any event,
D
okay. So listen,
Dynamite's coming up.
dynamite is coming up. Yeah. So listen, I'm reading from the introduction of the Ring of the Nibelung, this old volume I have. It is no accident that Wagner's first written version of the Ring story, the Nibelung myth as a project for a drama, dates from 1848, the year of the Communist Manifesto. Revolution was spreading like a prairie fire across Europe. The first smoldering spark had appeared in Sicily, but it was, as usual, Paris that gave the flaming signal. Monarchs cowered and chancelleries trembled as the news of the February Revolution swept across the continent, raising barricades in the streets of peaceful cities, democratic hopes in the hearts of men, and fiery speeches from demagogues and dreamers. As the wave reached Dresden early in 1849, we even see the conductor of the Royal Opera, caught up in the general liberal excitement, haranguing a crowd of 3,000 honest Dresdeners, members of a mildly Republican Vaterlandsverein. His whole soul goes into a passionate appeal to the King of Saxony to shed the bonds of custom and caste and take true kingship upon himself by coming to the assistance of his impoverished and exploited working classes. He adjures the court aristocracy to renounce the last remnant of special privilege and hints at dire consequences if they refuse. He addressed 3,000 people at one point.
Wow.
With a nervous eloquence for which he later became famous, this short, bespectacled gentleman with the large head and sensitive intellectual profile explains to his amazed audience his dream of a socialistic society in which the ills caused by the pursuit of gold shall vanish. Fuck these debts. Yeah, I'm making art.
Oh,
I'm a socialist now.
not self-interested at all.
Well, I'm sure there was some real sentiment. There's some real sentiment here, but it all gets mixed up, doesn't it?
It does.
The question of the source of all misery of our present social condition must be the focus of our most steadfast and active attention, he declares. We must make up our minds whether we really believe God can have doomed mankind, this crown of creation, with all its high spiritual and artistic capacities, to be held in abject slavery to a hard, unyielding product of nature, this sallow metal. The success I had was simply appalling, wrote Wagner. The astounded audience seemed to remember nothing of the speech of the royal conductor save the incidental attack I had made on the court sycophants. The news of this incredible event spread like wildfire. His speech was published in full in the next day's issue of the Dresden Anzeiger. All right, so he's putting himself out there, and he works for the court. And remember that too, like that bit about gold. I mean, the ring, das Ring. I mean, the ring
Mhm.
is a thinly veiled political allegory.
Right.
And it's this gold ring pulled from the bottom of the Rhine, right? And so it's this gold again. He's like, why are we so obsessed with this shiny metal? And he's not wrong. When pandemonium finally broke loose in Dresden, Wagner did cast his lot with the poor and exploited against the rich and powerful. In later years, okay, I don't want to. He tended to minimize his record as a practical revolutionary, but there is considerable evidence that he was involved in the ordering and distribution of grenades, and that he was regarded by his fellows on the Dresden barricades as a person of authority in the insurrectionary organization. A warrant was issued for the arrest of the royal conductor, and he narrowly escaped imprisonment by fleeing to Switzerland. Several of his friends who had taken part in the revolution, including August Rokel and Mikhail Bakunin, did receive death sentences commuted to long prison terms. Wagner, of course, lost his excellent position at the Dresden Opera, and for the moment at least, was ruined professionally, pecuniarily, in terms of money, and socially. He
He
has to
bit the
flee.
hand that feeds.
He has to flee. He has to go to Switzerland now. Um, can you believe it? Let's call that the midpoint of this one. Um, just wild, wild stuff. Um,
He's lived all
a-
over Europe just fleeing
just having to
different people.
flee time and time and time again. Abby, I got to stand up. I'll just be right back. Can you? I don't know. Do you want to hint at some book club dates or talk a little bit about Wagner and what do you think happens next to Wagner? Maybe stick with Wagner. I'll be right back.